It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day, and it's Walkabout Wednesday, and it's a hot one, the very, 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 very end of June. So, some things that I have noticed in my garden as the days have gotten longer and the temps have gotten hotter is I'm starting to see aphids form on some blooms. Now, naturally, there's none here. After I said that, for me to show you. But you know, aphids are those little white things that cluster all around the tips of newer growth. So if you're seeing aphids on your blooms, it's a really good idea to trim those blooms off. Also, as your blooms are spent, start doing some trimming, because the mother plant is sending a lot of energy to the bloom, and if your mother plant is really stressed due to the heat, maybe sacrifice some bloom in order to save your mother or make her at least more comfortable. The Crassula Platyphyla is in bloom right now in my garden. Now normally this plant is really red, isn't it? And I've noticed, I've also been watering these gutters pretty regularly since it's so hot, but I've noticed that they've gone a little green as they've bloomed, which I don't know if that's one thing's got anything to do with the other, but I find that rather interesting. Just a few weeks ago when I did this walkabout, these plants were just as red as red, and now they're a bit green. Another super fun thing, well, not so fun, but you notice that the string of pearls, my love-hate relationship, they were so pretty in the winter, and now that it's hot, they're starting to desiccate again. I just cannot keep these things going in the summer. I had hoped that they would grow down to the ground and throw roots into the soil and then run energy back and forth, but they just haven't given me that much growth. So I might have to give up on the string of pearls and just focus my energies on growing Morganianum, which seems to do really well in my gutters. Also, this wonderful mammillaria that was given to me by one of my crew members years ago is starting to throw off a lot of new growth. You want to come in here, Al, and see all of those babies down inside. And this piece is cresting here. So it's looking a little weird in this pot, and it may be time soon to reconfigure it. Oh, there's another baby right there. Yeah, so I'm super excited that that's finally starting to do something. It just sat there for years and did virtually nada. Okay, everything in this area is still looking really tight. Remember, this side of my garden gets the most protection from the hottest part of the day, so the plants are the happiest. In your gardens, oh, and look at the spiralis. Look at this. After I had fertilized it a month or so ago, it is really starting to green up, and look at the new growth that I'm getting at the top, how green that is. So I'm super encouraged with that. But for those of you that are in really hot areas, remember shade. Bring out those umbrellas. Get those plants covered. It's not so much about the water as it is about protecting them from the hottest part of the day. All my little collectibles are looking super good, with the exception of this little guy who's looking a little desiccated. I think this is another example of a plant that would probably benefit from a little more protection. Maybe find this guy some more shade. Maybe just pop it. So this is an empty pot. I'll just pop this back in the back right here. Can be the difference of 5 or 6 degrees at the hottest part of the day. So sometimes it's just a matter of location, location, location. There we go. Some of you commented that you thought the fire glass was a little much in this pot, and it kind of took away from the plant. And the more I look at it, the more I'm inclined to agree with your assessment and critique. I don't know, how I feel about the blue fire glass in here.
I don't like it.
Alex does not like it. So we may make a change, we may make a change, but I'm being really careful not to water this. It gets a little bit of overspray when I water the variegated milii, but I'm not applying any direct water to this since it was planted as a cutting. This little Grapto Ghosty crest is so cute. And you know, I've been kind of obsessing about crests these last few months, and I've learned that not all crests are equal. Some are kind of, you know, fugly, and others are just, you know, really, really showy and pretty. And I just thought that this little guy was an especially pretty crest. So he deserved to be put in a pot. And I'm really, really happy with that. Check out the graftos in this Bougainvillea pot, how they have literally hit the ground. This pot will be coming with me when I move. Yeah, I know. I don't know how. I'm probably, you know, clearly going to have to rent a giant U-Haul box truck just for plants. I mean, I think that's pretty well established, because this is just stunning right now. This Bougainvillea in this pot has been here for probably 7 years, maybe 8, and it has never looked better than it does this year. It is really, really maturing beautifully. I also tried really hard to keep this plant as a standard. You know, it was sold to me on a trunk and then poofy, but it has just wanted to pull for the sun over the years, and I finally gave up and just let it do what it wants. But you know, looking at it from this angle, it's gonna tip. It's really gonna get super top heavy. So this, you know, this move might be a really good opportunity for me to take it out of the pot and replant it, so that I can get it straighter in the pot, as well as perhaps even stake it, because I don't want to lose that. It's just so pretty. And I keep threatening to rework my head planter. But you know what? I really like it. And here's what I'm talking about with shade. Look at these string of pearls. Look how happy these are. They're not desiccated because they are in basically bright, indirect light all day long. The sun never hits this pot, which doesn't make the Graptosedums terribly happy. Look at how this has etiolated. So it's not the happiest here, but the string of pearls is stoked. So, you know, there you go. It's all about microclimates and location. My grapefruit pot, Greg made this for me out of recycled or upcycled wood, and it is literally falling apart. So I really would like to keep my grapefruit tree because it does throw off really good grapefruits. Not a lot of them, but the ones that I get, this is an Oro Blanco, are really sweet and delicious. So probably just go ahead and move this pot as is, not caring if it falls apart, and then repot this too when we get settled. You know, my ghosty nursery is just going berserko in here too. Yeah. All right, then there's no better time than summer for honeysuckle. Am I right? It smells so good. I love this. It took me years to get this to do this over this little structure that Greg built, and I couldn't be happier with it. I am experienced the hate part of my love-hate with the Brugmansia. In the early morning, the flowers are stunning. They are. I took a picture. I will post it on my community page later this afternoon. But when it's hot, they do this, and they just look like crap. Yeah, so yuck on that. But what are you gonna do? My Aloe nobles are noblising up a storm. These always go off and remind me of fireworks. It's always right around the end of June or the first part of July. I want to show you what has happened though. I have some aloe mite. See that gnarly tip on that bloom? That's aloe mite. Now, it has been my experience that if there's no evidence of aloe mite on the plant and you're just seeing it on the bloom, that is not the end of the world. Just snip off the bloom that is affected and dispose of it and get on with life. And that is exactly what I'm gonna do. Easy. All right, so I will throw these away. The gopher we had over here. Remember, my Cameronii was buried under a mound of dirt. I just pulled the Cameronii out, shook it off, and stuck it back in. The mound is still there, but hey, you know, you can see that the plants haven't suffered one bit. So whatever. Not even a little concerned about that. You know, I'm going to expect that some of my plants are just going to suffer a bit in the heat. That is just life, like the Aeonium kiwis. Look at this is just sunburnt and desiccated and super unhappy. Here's a good example of sunburn. Look at that. Just fried, isn't it? But you know what? It's okay. You know, I'm going to have some casualties, and what this tells me is this is probably not the best place for the Aeonium kiwi. I planted these here in the winter, and they were happy and fine and wonderful, but now with the summer, it's just not the most ideal place. So become an expert on your own microclimate and learn as you go. You might notice that your aloe distans are blooming right now. How fun. See, look at the difference. That's how you know it's an aloe, right? They have very, very similar blooms, but still unique in their own way. This is what I just love, love, love about succulents, amongst, of course, many, many other things. This Lucier crest, I got this from Oasis a couple of years ago. They were just experimenting and trialing this plant, and it has not disappointed. I mean, it doesn't look the greatest right now. It's clearly going dormant, but it has retained its shape. It hasn't died on me. The color, you know, isn't the greatest right now, but this is an example of a plant that should really be limited in terms of the amount of water that I give it. And if it was a collectible and something that was really important to me, I would make sure that I was giving it even deeper shade than I am right now. But I know it's tough, and I know it's going to survive, so I'm just going to let that ride. Oh my gosh. So the Bougainvillea is pretty much done with its big, fat, over-the-top bloom, and, you know, now comes the work. But I don't mind, you know, coming out here with a bucket and picking off all those spent blooms. I found that if you blast this with the hose first and get the blooms wet, they're a lot easier to pick up. So, you know, this isn't something that I'm going to do in the heat of the day, but later on this evening or early in the morning, and I'll get that handled. I was also a little concerned about my Agave Victoria compacta. I was sitting in the house looking out the other night, and it's starting to look a little oblong, and I'm thinking, crap, is it going to bloom? Because as you know, these plants are monocarpic, and after they bloom, they die, and she's one of my pride and joys, but there's nothing you can do to stop it or slow it down. You just have to let nature take its course. So I'm just watching her very carefully, and we'll see what happens, but I might be in the market for a new compacta one of these days soon. All right. The Stephanotis is loving this time of year. These blooms smell a bit like plumeria. They're very fragrant and very fabulous, and it's lovely to sit here and just smell them. My topsy-turvy has just defied even my wildest expectations over all these years that this has been here, and it's just a riot. I mean, it just keeps on keeping on. I rarely do anything to it other than snip off blooms. Occasionally I might tuck a little cutting in here and there, but for the most part it just sustains itself. All right, this agave variegata, attenuata variegata, I was just standing here thinking about how little she was when I got her. She has grown by at least 5 or 6 times. She did throw me off some nice pups a number of years ago, and I was so excited I gave them all away, thinking that she would just keep turning out the pups, and she hasn't pupped again since. So I'm just I'm always lifting her skirts and looking to see if there are any babies under there, but so far no. The succulent fountain is for the most part making me happy. The Morganianum was such a good idea. I don't have to bring the umbrella out here anymore. And of course the wisteria also does a good job of providing some shade. So, you know, putting the tougher aloes in here, and the Morganianums and the sedums, California sunsets, even this little, believe it or not, you know, this little Aeonium sunburst is super happy in the fountain right now. This is one of my favorite things in the garden. And my roses, I came out and I deadheaded them a couple of days ago, and I noticed that I had a lot of cutworm damage on the leaves. So I'm going to apply another systemic to the roses very soon and give them, you know, a nice deep water. They're pretty much done. They will bloom sporadically for me now for the next couple of months, but for the most part they're finished. One of you fabulous followers asked for an update on the aloe in the corner. So if my fantastic camera woman, you might want to try going this way, Al. Greg is off doing fixing irrigation in La Jolla today, so I've got Alex pressed into service to film this video. Here we are. How are you, Mr. Aloe? I haven't really looked at this plant in a while, but this, you know, was one that I had rescued from a client. They didn't like it. It was nearly dead. I had to cut a significant amount of the root ball off to get it into the pot, and then I trimmed back some dead branches and waited. And, you know, what has happened is it's thrown off pups and growth from beneath each and every cut that I've made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 arms, 9 arms. So, you know, in time, this could be a really, really interesting plant, but it is slow growing for sure. But it's hanging in there. And this little mystery aloe is throwing off a bloom, which is kind of pretty. I have no idea what that is. Who the baby daddy is on that is definitely unknown. All right, and then the raised bed planter, I did pull a couple of special aloes out of here for our Pacific Beach job, so I've got a couple of gaps. Check out this really pretty variegated fella here. Isn't that pretty? I don't know where I got that, but wow, I just love it. My little agavoides is super happy still in here despite the sun, and I always get concerned about my Aeonium sunburst crest in the summertime because, as you know, summer is the dormant season for Aeoniums. They're not a huge fan of the heat, particularly the sunburst, and it's definitely looking a little rough. Yikes. Yeah, I mean, it's okay, it's not dying or anything, but you know, it just looks a little rough. And my temptation is to bring some weed fabric or some sort of a shade cloth out here and cover this up. It won't look good. The shade cloth will look terrible, but I don't care. My plant will be happier for it. My little Mangave kaleidoscope is really starting to take off here in this pot. It seems extremely happy in this corner. My totem cactus in my Susan-Ock pot is just happy as it can be. You know, this is a plant that I'm never going to have to do a darn thing. Just enjoy, just look at it and love it. And my full sun gutters don't look as good, do they, as the ones over in the shadier side. And it occurs to me right now I have 0 spillers in these gutters, so these could use some upgrading for sure. Then what I have left in here, I removed a few things to take to clients. I still have my Perii, which is stunning. Uh-oh. My agave here has got, oh, look down inside, Al. This is mealybug. See that white stuff down in there? Ew. Yeah, that's mealybug. So I can hit that with some neem oil or some insecticidal soap. I can also hit it with a hose and just wash it out really good. Keep an eye on that and see if I can't nip that in the bud. And this agave blue glow is so gorgeous. This is a phenomenal specimen. Just stunning. And my little dichotoma, Aloe dichotoma, looks like crap. Ew. Just tragic, isn't it? What a sad, 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 sad plant. It was out in a pot in the courtyard and it wasn't loving life. So I moved it back here. And I don't know. I mean, it's not gonna win any prizes, but hey, it's still alive and thriving. And everything else back here is looking 100. So yeah, you know, despite the fact that it's hot, for the most part, everything is holding up really well. Yours truly also holding up really well. The realtor came by the other day with a photographer, took photos of the house. The listing went live today, so we have to be on tap now for showings. So we'll have to pack Bentley up and get out when people come to look at the house. But such is my life. We'll be moving to Vista in probably mid-August. So for the next month and a half, you know, we'll do our very best to keep the place looking as good as possible in the hopes of our extremely generous friends and landlords getting top dollar for the property. This has been Laura Eubanks reporting for Design for Serenity with Walkabout Wednesday and your succulent tip of the day. Tomorrow we will be back in Coronado, so we'll see you there. Bye, guys.